What is your superpower?
I'd probably say my creativity.
Knowing nerdy trivia.
My superpower is being a good listener.
Devising a million questions.
Helping people.
Making people laugh.
My superpower is that I'm determined and never give up.
Welcome to Voice of the Community. We've been having some great podcasts lately. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment so we can talk to you guys. Don't forget that. I'll probably remind you at the end. How you doing today, Erin?
Pretty good. I just spent the last hour in Norton. I don't know if everybody heard, but we had a sprinkler break over the holidays, and so we have to redo all the floors and walling, and we were just looking at some remodel things that we could do. So that was kind of exciting, just walking through. But other than that, it's a dandy Tuesday.
Yeah, not much to complain about. That's a whole other podcast. But I've been doing a whole job coach training all day. We're trying to get we're out trying to get as much training as possible on how to help individuals with neurodiversity. I am super excited to bring our friend Brandon back, Brandon Mark, former alumni of Meristem. I think you'll find back in October of 24, if you are on the podcast app and you go to the playlist, that you'll find his previous podcast episode where we were in Norton, before the flood, of course. And we're back because so much has happened with Brandon's life since that podcast, which was actually probably recorded a year before that, before it released. So much has happened. I can't, I guess I could just ask Brandon, right? What are some things that have happened since you recorded with us?
Where to start? Since our last meeting, I've been going back to Sac State, trying to pursue my bachelor's degree, living with Mackenzie and Caroline as roommates, going for 2 years now, as well as attended the Disney College program in Orlando, Florida.
Boom. Where do you want to start? I mean, that's a bunch of stuff. Harry, where
Well, I think we can start with so we've talked about Meristem in the previous episode. But you're at Meristem, you decide to go to college for hospitality because that's really where it began, the whole Disney thing, which we'll get to. I guess we can start with that. What about hospitality? What was it about hospitality that you wanted to do that as a career, or I guess go to college for hospitality?
Well, I have undergone several different phases in my life, thinking about what I'd like to do, what I'd like to work for, and then I realized that I like to be customer and people oriented, paying attention to detail, answer questions, solve problems, try to bring a little bit of happiness in people's lives if I can, which is why I thought about the hospitality industry as my career, either working in a store, restaurant, or maybe even a vacation place.
We can start with that, right, Erin? Because I think that not one size does not fit all for people that have neurodiversity. And I'm learning a lot from Brandon because a lot of times, Brandon, I hear, people that have neurodiversity, they don't want to be customer facing. There's a majority, I haven't helped 1,000 people, but a lot of the people that are job seekers that I've seen, whether here at Meristem or through TAP, are trying to avoid those jobs, or they're trying to do the job they will work in the grocery store, but they want to make sure there's no customer, they don't want to talk to people. And you have this, you're going to school for it, and you were at, we can get to Disneyland, but you were at Disney World, but you were doing that, you're doing customer facing, and you have no, but I just hear all the time, people don't want to do it, and here you are, you're doing it. I think that's pretty cool.
Thank you. Sure. Customer service can be a little bit tricky for some, whether it's basic communication coming from you, body language, reception from either fellow coworkers or the people that you're helping. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the high amount of activity level, the number of people you're addressing, or the various tasks that come with it on top of that. And as for me, sure it can be overwhelming, but it's always the first step that's the hardest and the scariest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But after that, after you try it out for a little bit, and you hone your skills and sharpen them, thus making you a more well-rounded person. Well, that's how I look at it anyway.
Yeah, no, I love it. Brandon, you said, one of the things is bringing humor. What are some of your little things you like to do to bring humor when you're working with a customer?
So sometimes I like to throw in a clip or try to put in some corny phrase or a clever one if I can. Like for example, if there was a long line at a Disney store, I would say, I understand waiting is a bit tough without a fast pass, right? Well, how about we pass the time fast with a little game? And then I may throw in some trivia, something to keep their mind off of the frustrating aspects, because when customers focus on the frustration or other negative elements in their current situation, it makes their days plus anyone around them feel down at the same time, thus creating a domino effect. But even if it's just through a small act, if you can just bring a little bit of fun into it while also addressing concerns, that makes the situation all the better.
Love it. That's awesome. How did you get, because, like to Harry's point, with autism, probably a higher percentage of people are kind of social anxious. But there are some, we have a number of students on campus who love the social side of life. Did it take courage for you to be able to throw in those humorous pieces, or is that something that naturally came to you?
I feel like it was natural, since I've been a big fan of creating things, whether it was drawing, writing things, or basic communication. But in the professional world, that does require a little bit more practice and needs more thought into that process. Sure, one can prepare as much as they like for anything, but executing action, though, is another matter entirely.
Yeah. What were some of your challenges in terms of execution?
Sometimes the amount of time that you're given, maybe if you have more people in your store or restaurant than you normally can, you don't have time to address each individual person, especially if you have more important tasks that you need to take care of first. Or maybe it's so loud you can't even process what you're supposed to do next. And if you're without a teammate, that can be frustrating in itself. And I've experienced that before when I was at Ederace, because it's so busy during holidays, normal special occasions, or Sunday brunch technically.
So what is your current job? Do you currently work?
I'm currently back at Ederace. Hopefully, if I can secure one, maybe I can find some seasonal work at Disneyland so I can get experience on both sides.
Well, we'll talk about...
Wait, what's the name of the place you work, Brandon?
Oh, Ederace European Bakery and Cafe.
Okay.
And what is your job there?
I'm a runner and buster there, but I do more than just clear tables and bring dishes to tables. I also set up the patio for band performances and parties. I give announcements about special menus or events coming up. And every now and then, I may help with prepping some items from beverages or boxing up cakes for prepaid orders.
So we talked about this during the first episode with you, Brandon. When you're going to school, you have a job. You're doing all of this at the same time. Plus, you live independently. Like you mentioned, your roommates who are former alumni also. So what is that like, going to school and also having a job at the same time?
Well, I'd be lying if I said it was a piece of cake, because it's a very big responsibility to pursue your education as well as your career. It can be a little bit tricky at times, because I want to enjoy my time as a young adult, but also make sure to prepare myself for the upcoming years. So it can be difficult to balance at times, especially if I have limited free time. But something that I go by, pain and sacrifice is temporary, but glory and success is forever.
Wow.
So I think last time we talked, you're telling us about your job, but then the big opportunity to go to Disney University happened, and we'd love to hear all about that. So first off, like how does one even go to Disney University?
So that's an interesting question. Disney University is the building at West Clock, where students or workers may attend sessions or plan meetings. As for the college program itself, if a student has completed at least one semester at any school they attend, they can submit an application through DisneyCareers.com. Mine was during September, but there's another opportunity for a program right now, which you can do so as well. And you can take part in various roles from hotel lodging, recreation, and more. And then after you send an application, you then have to see if you get an email back for a phone interview. You'll be getting a call from a representative from Flamingo Crossings Village, where all CPs or college program participants stay, and then you wait for a response if you get accepted or not.
Mm-hmm. Now anyone can't do this. Like you have to, people that want to do it have to be in a hospitality major, right?
It does not have to be hospitality alone. Maybe it could be pursuing a career as a chef. Maybe you want to be someone in maintenance. Maybe it could be engineering.
But let's talk about hospitality for a minute. Before I'm doing what I'm currently doing, I was in hospitality over at American River College, which is a community, that's where you started. It's a community college in the Sacramento area, but it's top notch when it comes to like hospitality management, their hospitality management curriculum. So I did that for a little while, also in the Bay Area, but very interested. And one thing I've learned, and we also run a bed and breakfast at Meristem. So we have interns that are working at our on-site bed and breakfast as an internship. And even when I was over there, one of the things that we were looking at is Disneyland. Like when we would look at customer service, we always came back to Disney because it did seem like Disney was the number one example we could find on hospitality, on customer service rather. So how was that? Like what is it about, I just heard that Disney has the best customer service training program of anyone.
Well, it can depend on one's point of view.
Yeah.
But for me, I've looked up to Disney because not only do they bring top-notch entertainment, but they also focus on the people who come and look up to the characters they grew up with, the songs that they listen to. So while combining salesmanship in professional terms with showmanship in the creative terms, that's where the best customer service comes into play. Of course, the college program does come with its challenges as well as its splendor.
Right.
From handling high crowds, maybe long shifts, and addressing unpredictable weather. Not to mention, if you don't live in Florida, you might be living miles away from your hometown or state.
Right, I should mention that Florida, we're not talking about Anaheim, so Florida, so you actually moved to Florida from California. Like how was that move for you? Like you're all the way on the other side of the country from your family for all the time.
I admit it was a little bit daunting at first, and spending not just weeks but months away from Sacramento, California seemed a little bit scary at first, but it's always that first step that's the most important step.
Right.
Because then after spending a little bit of time there, I was good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to know fellow CPs who would be with me, the cast members, or program learning team, who would be my teachers and supervisors. It came naturally.
How long was the program?
So my program was 7 months, from January until August, but CPs can stay from 2 months to a whole year if you're so inclined. but it may depend on the type of program they'd be attending. The Disney College program for anyone in the United States, the International Cultural Program for those outside the United States, or who knows what others that people may attend.
Now we get some pretty. I mean, like, so I want to say Florida. You mentioned weather. We get weather in California, but like, what was it like going through your first hurricane warning?
Let's see. Yeah, I was not in the middle of a hurricane, but I was in the middle of high storms during the summer. Because even though it may be warm out here in California, the weather can change unpredictably down on the East Coast. We did have some rainfall in between March and April, as well as very humid heat in the beginning of June, and high storms in July and heading towards August. But even though it seemed dangerously scary, it's actually a good way for me to be prepared for any unpredictable situation that may come across. And even if travelers may not want those situations to happen, that's why it's up to us to try and make sure that they enjoy their stay while also making sure they keep safe.
Yeah.
All right.
What you might have mentioned a bit. What was the living situation? Were you in like a university type lodging with everybody, or did you have to go get an apartment out there? Or
you could get an apartment if you wanted to choose to not take their housing option. But when I applied, I chose to do so, and the situation can be two bedrooms, two restroom, 4x2 or 4x4, which increases your rent and depending on the tier. But you don't get to choose yourself. You may choose a preference, but you have to see what your situation will be. And yes, there were apartments with multiple floors on both the east and west sides of Flamingo Crossings Village, where a bus can take you to and from each spot.
cool.
And as for me personally, I was put in the Iago building, which is I 33 with two roommates from Scotland and Germany.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's kind of cool.
People from all over the world are coming. Yeah, so during this program at the Disney World in Florida, so how do you get to do like a variety of jobs that they choose for you, or are you pre-selecting certain jobs that you're interested in? How does that work?
So I applied, I had to choose my top 3 out of, I believe it was 11 roles. You can choose retail, which is merchant sales, food and beverage, recreation, and it's all luck of the draw for not only your role, but also your location. And maybe it might be one that you wanted, maybe it might be one you might not want, but it's all up to chance. And I feel pretty lucky to have gotten the chance to work at the Creation Shop in Epcot.
Oh wow. Which was but overall then, what was your favorite after you had came home and thought about it, I guess?
Which was my favorite store or
Place that you worked, like job that you had while you were there in the program.
Ooh.
Is that hard? That's
Well,
a tough question.
well, my role was retail. I was able to pick up at other stores as long as I had the proper training. Aside from Creations, I think my favorite one may have been Fantasyland in Magic Kingdom.
Oh yes.
Sweet. That's awesome. So then after 7 months, so you focus on hospitality, 7 months. What were some like key learning takeaways that you got from that program?
Well, while I do my best to make magic at the parks, I also have learned to balance out having fun playing the parks while also taking lessons from veteran cast members from the learning sessions that take place at Flamingo Crossings, as well as my shifts when I'm officially on the clock. So this helped me with my time management, as even if I have very little free time, while also making sure that I stay stable in finances, health, happiness, mood, and profession.
Nice.
And were you paid for that when you were on the clock?
Yes, and one other benefit is that you don't have to worry about paperwork for sending money to your account because the rent will be taken out of your paycheck every week.
Okay, that's cool. So it kind of all balances itself out at the end of the day. So you just, whatever you have at the end, hopefully it's not less than, like you don't get, if you spent too much, would you get a bill?
It may depend on your financial status, but as for me, I've been making sure to keep track of my expenses every month. And it's just the amount that you'll be sent as well, but it may depend on how much one works or does not.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, cool.
That's pretty cool. So then, Brandon, you were telling me before we came on here, like you are, so you came back from Disney World, you're back in school at Sac State, and you were saying that you might be graduating in June.
Well,
how does that feel?
It feels pretty exciting, but I'm not trying to get too excited because I don't know if it will be certain yet.
Yes.
But that's the part. That's just the thing, though. It's one adventure. You don't know what will happen or what it's going to turn out. So I'm just going to face whatever I can head on and do whatever I can to make it happen.
Nice. What would your degree be in, Brandon?
It would be a bachelor's degree in hospitality and tourism management.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And do you have any idea, maybe it's too soon of a question, right? But any idea of what kind of job you could do after that, or you would do?
If I were to find a job after that, I'm not certain on it, but I may consider working for Disney again, but maybe at a more intense role than simply just retail. Maybe even be a trainer, supervisor, or maybe try a different role entirely.
Sweet. What are some other like let's say you stayed in Sac area? Are there hospitality like jobs that kind of align with what you learned at Disney that you could get in this area, or you would just have to go find something somewhere else?
If I were to choose a role outside of Everest, I may think about probably helping with making events at hotels or conventions, maybe even find a different store or restaurant to work with. While food and beverage is an essential life skill to me, I'm not sure if I'm about actually being behind the scenes all the time, because being away from social interaction can really dampen one's mood as well as their focus and motivation to keep a job. That's actually something I learned in communications class back at ARC.
Cool.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, this is kind of pretty cool, Brandon. If I'm hearing you correctly, Brandon is not the person that wants to be behind the scenes. So like you mentioned event management. Event management is sort of setting up an event. I mean, maybe your name was mentioned at some point, right? But you're like not, and take the credit for it. But like you're not the MC of the thing. No. You want to be like you probably like front desk at a hotel checking people in, or you want to be the greeter at the thing. That's what it seems like. That's more like your style.
That's what I'm thinking. But I'm not saying that behind the scenes isn't good at all. Behind, whether if it's the creative process, just going through preparations, and that's totally fine. But if you were cut off from the rest of the people entirely, though, with very little interaction, that's where it gets a little bit hard.
I can see that.
Yeah. When you finished the Disney program, do they offer you a job, or you have to reapply, or how does that work? It
all depends. So some of my fellow CPs who finished their program either transferred to another park or resort hotel. Some others like me have gone back home, but some have also been offered that they may want to come back for another program, or maybe consider an internship.
Are they all exclusive, like different? So in other words, you have Florida, then you have Anaheim, And then you also have even other countries like Paris. Are they all separately, or like you could apply and work at any of them?
It could, but all depends on the conditions, how many people they actually need, the roles need to be filled,
Right.
as well as the requirements to actually join those stations. Maybe you may require an international country visa. Maybe
Right.
you
Or
might
a foreign language.
find a new home, a new language. But I was very honored to have met many people from Thailand, Puerto Rico, Japan, Germany, and several other countries when I was working at the creation shop.
Oh, that's cool. And it seems like there'd be more opportunity because it's bigger, Florida, than California was, kind of smaller. So
It may be bigger than Disneyland size-wise, but it also means more places to actually look after and manage.
right. Wow.
So in transitioning back, you picked up. Is this job that you're doing now new, or you just picked up the previous job that you had before you left?
Oh, do you mean from the college program, or do you?
Yeah. So
The bakery, Eddie's?
Yeah. So when I was at Harry's at the time when I applied for the Disney College program, thankfully I let them know ahead of time, so they would be okay with me going, and thankfully I was told I did not have to go through the interview process again when I came back.
sweet.
All I needed to do was just readjust myself to the time zone, get back home, and boom, I was able to come back.
Wow.
Which actually reminds me that the owner, who is a good friend of mine and my family, actually gave me this leather journal to document my time when I was at the
that's
program.
cool. Yeah.
That's
very
awesome. Another thing about branding, you're also an artist. How's your art been going?
I admit I've been on hold on it because I've been at Sac State and working hard, but I feel glad to be able to spend a little bit of time sketching, even if it's just a few lines, so I can keep my creative juices going.
cool. Yeah.
In fact, while I wasn't able to touch my sketchbook too much when I was in Florida, in between learning sessions and work, I was able to make customized buttons for guests who came into any store celebrating a special occasion in all regards.
Yeah. Very cool. How many classes are you taking now, Brandon?
I'm currently taking four. I did complete my senior seminar class, which is only 2 sessions, so it's kind of like a fourth and a half, even
Yeah.
though it is a fifth. But all needed to get my degree and make sure not to overload myself.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot of classes. What is that? Like 16 credits or something like that?
13.
13? Yeah. Wow.
Let's transition. Well, I mean, we talk about a lot of real in-your-face sort of stuff on this podcast, Brandon. And some of the things I think we mentioned in the first one podcast, kind of personal. You mentioned communication. You were communicating at work with co-workers, with the public. It's a very public-facing thing at the Disney World. But I'm just on the topic of communication because you also mentioned that you live with 2 former Meristem students and you live in a house together. So communication, you're able to communicate at work and around customers. How's the communication at home? Because I live with a roommate. One thing that we often say together is like, we're just not good communicators. Like together, we are failing miserably at communicating with each other. Basically, the example of like what we need, what chores we need to do to keep up, who's gonna empty the dishwasher, any communication that needs to happen. You know, who's gonna buy the soap for the house, you know? We just don't communicate very well. Is that something that you don't have an issue with, or?
Personally, I have not had any issue with Mackenzie or Caroline in any of those. We do make sure to let each other know when we want to go to dinner, if we're going to be out, maybe taking care of a workout, an appointment, or anything else that they may need to attend to. Plus, when it comes to face-to-face communication regarding anything else that we might need to plan for, or if there are some last-minute changes needed to be made, we're all pretty flexible, well, if I do say so.
I mean, if you're doing well on it, then you'll tell people because that's good experience. But like, how do you deal with the issue of like, who's gonna clean the living room? Because there's common things in a house that people have to figure out how to.
Well, in the scenario where we need to address something or believe it's one's turn to take care of a certain chore, we do let each other know, remember what's happened before, and then we take care of it accordingly. However, I don't think that's been a problem all that much. Not saying it wasn't perfect, but we do make sure to be fair, since we're all responsible for our own living situation. However, I can't say the same for one roommate I had when I was in the program, though.
At Disney World, you mean?
Yes. So I had one who is from North Carolina, and although he was on the spectrum like me, and he was working in the Emporium, he did not clean his own dishes. He piled his dirty stuff all over his room. And he also swiped a couple food supplies from our other roommates. Normally I would try to find equal ground and understand the situation. But in the scenario where it does not seem to be working out, that's the time when you'd have to let a supervisor know. So in the beginning of February, I learned that after everything was said and done, that he silently left the building. Even if all problems can't be solved the way we want, every problem has a solution.
That makes sense.
So, did you have? I heard you might be. I mean, I know you're not going back to. Hopefully, you could go back to the Disney program again, because it sounded wonderful. It just sounded like the greatest thing.
I would say it was, because
for you, I mean,
it not only helped me with learning how to pursue a career, as well as take lifetime skills that can be utilized in all fields, even if they don't directly correlate with your major or goal. It's also helped me with my independence, because I love my parents very much, and I greatly appreciate Mackenzie and Caroline being my roommates. But I could not just solely rely on others all the time. And if I want to be able to take care of myself and a family and home in the future, I felt like I needed this program to improve myself as a person.
Right on. I think that's probably like the winning statement right there.
That's there. I mean, all the job seekers listening, listen. People are gonna listen now. So that's wonderful news. Wow. I don't even know where to go from that. That's like mic drop. You know?
Yeah. I mean, like, we probably should wrap it up, but I got maybe one or two final questions for you, Brandon. If you were working at Disneyland and they said you could be any character at Disney World, which character would you be?
Whew, that is a hard one, but if I had to probably maybe choose one, perhaps some could describe me as Genie, because I'm outgoing, creative, always trying to bring smile to people's faces, even in an awkward or strange situations.
Yeah.
Say the character's name again.
Genie.
From where's from Aladdin, right?
Yeah.
Oh yes. Wow.
That's sweet. Out of the Lamb.
That's also another thing. You do voices too, huh?
Well,
somewhat.
I may not be anything as professional as Walt Disney, who first voiced Mickey, or Robin Williams, who voiced Genie. But here's a few.
You know what?
Hello, I am Baymax, your personal healthcare companion. Hello, hero.
And what about Genie?
Oh man, you guys have no idea what it's like to be in that land for 10,000 years, 52 days, and 54 seconds. Wait, where's my spell? I was just here, and then there was a bunch of treasure. Now there's a bunch of rocks. Now I gotta look it all up on Craigslist.
Oh, I
was
love
great.
it, Brandon. Thank you so much for coming out. That's wonderful. That's great. Anything before we end it, Aaron?
No, just have you ever thought of pursuing a job as a voiceover?
I'm not sure about that. That will require a lot of practice.
Yeah.
If you
No offense, but does it also require you to be in a booth alone, not being the out-facing person?
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't want to turn Aaron's idea down. But like you know, half the movies that you see, you've no idea who the actor is who's playing the voice,
Yeah.
unless you're like a fanatic. But like,
Maybe let's finish with this question then, Brandon. Seems like maybe looks like you may be able to graduate in the next few months. So like maybe we'll have you back again in a year and a half on the podcast. If that would happen, what are kind of the next big things in the life of Brandon?
I'm not sure, but I can definitely say after graduating, I'll definitely try to expand my networking skills, consider any jobs to work long term, as well as maybe even find someplace to live and try out some new things. Even if I might not secure a new job right away, it's always the time to try and keep moving forward, opening new doors.
That seems like a good note to end on.
yeah. And also, I'll just add something because for Aaron, for like, what would you say? Because I feel like you're a spokesperson here. Like you could totally do it. Like we've actually never had this, but like we have what would you say? Because you come from Meristem. You've had a lot of success after Meristem. You could say a lot of things to people that are like going to leave Meristem. So what would be some advice that you would give somebody that's going to go out there in the world? That might be too big a question for you, but.
Well, there are a few things. Do not be afraid to try new things. Be willing to try to learn more. It's never the end of one adventure, for it only begins another. You're constantly learning. You're constantly growing. Do what you love and keep at it for a long time, and you'll all be set. And remember. Above all else, do not let go of your dreams. If you can dream it, you can do it.
Wow.
Voices of the community
Thank you
out.
Wow. Thank you.